Hi, today I'm going to tell you the story of the amazing Abraham Petrovich Gannibal. Alexander Pushkin, the father of Russian literature, wrote a book called More of Peter the Great. But it wasn't about the Russian king Peter the Great, but one of his adopted children named Abraham Petrovich Gannibal, Alexander, great-grandfather. Gannibal, the son of Prince Bruja, ruler of the city Lagune. Lagune location is debated upon, but most agree it's today Lagune Brunei in northeastern Cameroon. The city of Lagune was close to the Islamic Brunei Empire. The empire got most of its money by capturing and selling slaves to the barbarian pirate states. They couldn't process non-Muslims slaves, so that made Bruja pagan empire a target. At the age of 8, the Brunei Empire captured Gannibal to force Bruja and eventually his empire to convert to Islamism. He was eventually sold to the Ottoman Empire, which is today Turkey. He became Prince Ahmed, personal slave. Ahmed was the younger brother of Sultan Mustafa II. Ahmed killed Mustafa and Ahmed became king, and Gannibal became an informant to him. The people of Sultan Mustafa II and killed Ahmed for revenge. Gannibal didn't have a place there because he was considered the enemy of the Sultan. The Russian ambassadors told Peter the Great, then King of Russia, about Gannibal. Peter the Great immediately told them to bring Gannibal to Russia. People don't really know how Gannibal got to Russia. Expects that a few Russian agents bought and smuggled Gannibal to the Bosnian diplomat Petrovich Ragunsky, who brought him directly to Russia. He felt like he was in a different world because of the bitter cold climate and the bright white snow, especially when he saw the red walls and onion domes of the Kremlin. Gannibal first met Peter the Great on Christmas Day in the Kremlin. Gannibal caused quite a scene in the Kremlin because Russians didn't know much of Africa and they thought that black people were mysterious, potentially dangerous, non-humans. But Peter the Great was known for bringing people from other countries to turn Russia into a large European power. But because he thought that was open to anyone, no matter their identity, by now Gannibal knew how to read, write, and speak Russian, Turkish, and his old native language fluently. In 1705, Peter took Gannibal to the Baltics to fight against Sweden. He was baptized en route in Vilnius. This was when Russia was still a Christian country, unlike the community's countries it is today, so there's no surprise in that there he earned the nickname Petrovich, which means son of Peter, which is used today as Gannibal's middle name. Spending so much time with the king, he began to grow a liking towards science and engineering. Peter saw it in him and thought he would make a fine military engineer. Peter spent the next few years serving Peter the Great and earning his trust by making a code system for his military. Peter the Great took Gannibal with him in his trip in Europe to connect Russia to Europe. Gannibal, with Peter's permission, stayed behind in Paris to continue his education. People were surprised that a person with the identity of many slaves was being educated in one of Paris' finest universities and became a minor celebrity in the city. He became friends with a lot of famous people, one of which was the famous French philosopher Voltaire, who called him the Dark Star of the Russian Enlightenment. A year later, in 1717, he joined the French military to fight in the War of Quadruple Alliance against Spain. Gannibal was quickly promoted to lieutenant engineer and was given a unit of artillery too, where he fought very well, helping to capture many towns and cities. He played a big role in destroying Spain's Bashan fortress. There he got hit himself because of a misfire of a buck-shot cannon which he made himself. Gannibal got a hero welcome when he came back to Paris. There he earned the nickname Hannibal after the Carthaginian general Hannibal. The Russian translated this into their own language and called it Gannibal, and it is today used as Gannibal's last name. In 1723, he went back to Russia to the new capital St. Petersburg. The reason I said this is because before 1721, Russia's capital was Moscow. Anyway, he was welcomed very grandly, and Peter the Great was happy for him, and he thought his wishes of making Gannibal a bright mind would come true. Gannibal spent the next few years building the fortress of Kronstadt on Kotlin Island. Then he supervised the building of the massive canal of Lake Ladoga, which people thought buildings was impossible until Gannibal came along. This made him one of the most famous civil and military engineers in the entirety of Russia. In 1725, Peter the Great died. This made him sad not only because he died, but also because he was the third father he lost, 2 to murder and 1 to kidnap. He was invaded by a lot of people, of which included Alexander Manlisovich. He quickly took over Russia and was about to make it even very hard for Gannibal because he sent Gannibal to Seljuk in Siberia, hoping the cold will kill Gannibal for him. Even though he was basically in prison, he continued to serve his country with the hope that he would return home. His wish came true because Alexander was overthrown 2 years after he took over and sent to Siberia himself. While Gannibal returned to his home, in 1741, Elizabeth, who was a daughter of Peter the Great, became monarch. She promoted Gannibal to commander of the Russian army garrison in Reveal, now Tallinn, and in Estonia. Ethnics, Germans in Tallinn, looked at Gannibal with suspicious. To help with this, Gannibal put up a fireworks show. Snobby Thailanders said were comparable to fireworks shows in Moscow or St. Petersburg. Gannibal also improved the coastal defense and quickly became one of the political powerful people in the Baltics. In 1742, Elizabeth awarded Gannibal with the Lovesoy's estate with 100 serfs on it, which is funny because once a noble that turned into a slave for Prince Adam, and now he owns slaves himself. In 1756, Elizabeth, at the end of her reign, started a war on Russia. Gannibal didn't like the war, but still hoped improve the Russian military and remembered the fireworks. He didn't just build them as a hobby, but a military project to develop a rocket launcher. But again, he was dragged down because more and more of the Russian nobility went against him. He was eventually demoted and spent the rest of the war building canals and securing Constitution. In 1762, Elizabeth died and her nephew Peter III succeeded her. Peter III stopped the war with Prussia because he admired the enemy's king Frederick the Great. Frederick was overthrown and soon killed in 1762 by his wife Catherine the Great, the same year Gannibal did his last duty to the rulers of Russia by setting up a magnificent fireworks display outside the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. By then, he was considered a person from the era of the long-dead Peter the Great. He noticed his career had ended and retired to his Mykhailivsk estate. He lived 20 more years until 1792 and died at the age of 82. He had many wives and 11 children throughout his life. One of his children, Lines, gave birth to Alexander Pushkin, the father of Russian literature. The book Alexander Pushkin wrote about Gannibal was written in the exact same Mykhailivsk estate Queen Elizabeth awarded Gannibal. Gannibal was the first and the most popular black nobleman in Europe.